What it means to be a Texan is changing. The New York Times collected years of data focused on the shifting population right here in the state. One of the reporters on this story, David Goodman, is here to give us some insight. Thanks so much for joining us. And David, can you give us a snapshot of the population numbers you discovered through that data?
Well, what we were looking at is census data going back 3 decades to really track how the population has changed over that time. And it won't be a surprise to anyone in Texas that the population here has changed demographically. The story of Texas really is of change, really since its beginning. But what we were able to uncover in the data is how dramatic that's really been in recent years. So to take one example, the number of Texas-born Hispanics, people who are born here who are Hispanic, now outnumbers the number of Texas-born whites, so people who are born in Texas and are white. And that's something that I think really cuts against the assumptions that people have, especially outside the state, but even inside the state, about who is, coming up and who is sort of a Texan, really, to be frank about it. And this is something that I think has implications for politics down the road. Now, it's not just the Hispanic population that's increasing. We see the Asian population of Texas in places that used to be essentially suburban, white flight areas outside of cities. Now you have areas like Frisco, Texas, which more or less was a small town, a couple decades ago, and had about a handful of Asian residents. Now about a quarter of the 200,000 people who live in that city are Asian, and it's transformed the schools, it's transformed the culture. It's a place where now they celebrate, Diwali and other and Lunar New Year and holidays like that. And then you take a place like Houston, which has long been a place that had a huge and vibrant African American population, but it's really now taken on a new residence outside of the state. And you have people moving from around the country to Houston, seeing it as a new place of opportunity, kind of like Atlanta has always been. And I talked to a lot of folks who lived and came to Houston recently and really talked about it as a place that's booming in the Black community.
You mentioned politics there. What kind of changes and effects on the political sphere will these shifts have?
I mean, that's the great question, right? I think people, especially in the Democratic Party, have assumed that these demographic shifts are moving the state slowly into their category, that are turning Texas blue. And I think we've seen that sort of fail, after election, although the margins of victory for Republicans in the state have gotten slimmer. And one of the things that we saw in the data is that there's a very strong correlation between counties that had a large number of Texas-born Hispanics, so people who are born here of Hispanic heritage, and Democratic voting. And so the sort of shift as that population is growing, and if that population continues to vote Democratic, it means the state will continue to move in that direction. So even though Greg Abbott won in the gubernatorial race, you saw the counties where you saw him perform less well in those counties that had large Texas-born Hispanic populations.
You spoke to people across the state for this project. So what did they have to say about the changing identity of Texas?
One of the interesting things that I thought was, well, so we were out in Odessa, Texas, talking to Roughnecks, and this is a population that is sort of seen from the outside as being white. I think the stereotypical oil field worker is a sort of a greasy white man. And what is the reality now is that most of the people who are working out there, or at least an even number, are Hispanic. And we talked to folks who said there are shows about oil rigs that have flipped their reality, that it's all about white oil workers, when in fact it's Hispanic workers who are out in the oil fields now in just as great numbers. And so I think there's a sense that really the image of Texas hasn't quite caught up to what the reality is on the ground. And the other thing that I found that I thought was kind of interesting is just in talking to new migrants to Texas, so people that have come, transplants, people not necessarily from overseas but from other parts of the country. They come here and they're not necessarily looking to become Texan in the way that others might have done in the past. They're sort of coming and bringing their own culture in their own way, and they don't really have an idea of Texas. It's just a place where there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of jobs, cheaper housing, and a place where you can really make it. And so I do think that's a fundamental shift of people reimagining what it even means to be a Texan now.
David, a really interesting look at our state. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.